The Trump administration is freezing $10 billion in funding for New York and 4 other states, claiming widespread fraud.
Now, the cuts target low-income families and also child care. Dick Brennan here in studio with us with more on this. Dick?
Christina, Jessica, we can tell you the freeze comes after investigators probe welfare fraud in Minnesota, but the Trump administration provided no evidence of fraud in New York or the other states, including California, Illinois, and Colorado.
I have to ask the question. Why is there such a frontal assault on children in this nation from this administration?
Governor Hochul blasting the Trump administration for freezing nearly $10 billion in benefits for social services programs in New York and 4 other states.
Because our kids should not be political pawns in a fight that Donald Trump seems to have with blue state governors.
The move will freeze $7 billion for the
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow. I can be anything. Take a look. It's in a book, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading
rainbow. Assistance for Needy Families program, nearly 2.4. Billion for
homicide detectives,
Child Care Development Fund, and roughly $870 million.
Don't get a lead within the first 40
million for social services grants that largely benefit children.
Okay, come on. We need to talk about what just happened in that courtroom.
For homicide detectives, their chance of
January 7th, 2026, President Trump freezes, literally freezes. His jaw drops, his face goes pale. He's sitting there at the defense table, and this audio starts playing. And not just any audio. We're talking a secret recording.
For homicide detectives,
his detention cell, a monitored call. And what you're about to hear is going to blow this whole thing wide open. So picture this. Judge Alinaga is presiding. The courtroom's packed. Standing room only. Journalists are crammed in the back. His own family members are sitting in the gallery. Everyone's sitting there, and suddenly the speakers crackle. A voice comes through. Trump's voice, slurred, angry, directing his son. Destroy the evidence, he says. Get rid of it. And then, and this is the wild part, he's offering money. $50 million. That's what he's promising. $50 million bucks to anyone who makes problems disappear. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth, All right, let's get back to the video.
In a statement, a spokesman for the Department of Health and Human Services said, for too long, Democrat-led states and governors have been complicit in allowing massive amounts of fraud to occur under their watch. The news comes just days after the Trump administration paused federal funding of child care programs in Minnesota amid a deepening federal probe into allegations of fraud involving social services.
It's vindictive. I believe that we'll be successful in court. We'll be having a litigation strategy, and we'll fight this with every fiber of our being.
And Baez Miller says she hopes the state can step in to try to make up some of the losses from the freeze. In his statement, Senator Chuck Schumer called the cuts, in his words, beyond disgusting, and accused the Trump administration of playing politics.
The room goes silent. I mean, dead silent. People are gasping. Journalists are scribbling frantically. His lawyers are looking at each other like they're watching a car crash in slow motion, like they know what's coming. They know how bad this is because this isn't some leaked text message or a secondhand account anymore. This is his voice, his actual voice, caught on a monitored line by federal authorities. There's no ambiguity here. There's no way to spin this. And here's what makes this absolutely explosive. The FBI already verified it. They transcribed it. They authenticated it forensically. This isn't speculation. This isn't rumor. This isn't some conspiracy theory floating around on the internet. This is evidence. Cold, hard audio evidence of what prosecutors say is active criminal conduct happening right now, mid-trial, mid-presidency. And it's verified. It's authenticated. It's real. Are you kidding me? This is the kind of moment that just doesn't happen in American politics. You've got the sitting president of the United States in his second term, frozen in a courtroom, while audio of him ordering evidence destruction plays out loud. The optics alone are absolutely devastating. But it gets worse. Because this recording, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It connects to everything else. The Mar-a-Lago documents, the bathroom photos with nuclear secrets, the prior recordings, the crypto transactions, the witness intimidation allegations, the whole house of cards that prosecutors have been building for months. It's all connected. And now prosecutors have the centerpiece. They have the audio. They have his voice directing it all. And immediately, and I mean immediately, the judge responds, new obstruction charges. Right there on the spot. Like, we're not talking about some slow legal process here. The judge hears this tape and boom, new charges are announced. A superseding indictment is announced moments later. The trial date gets vacated. We're talking about the legal system responding in real time to what amounts to a smoking gun played out in open court. This is real. This is happening. The Trump defense team is imploding. Like, we're talking people abandoning ship. His lawyers are gone. His team is collapsing. And now with this tape and evidence, his whole strategy falls apart. You can't defend yourself against your own voice saying the things you were being accused of. There's no spin that survives that tape. There's no explanation that works. There's no way to walk this back. This is the kind of moment that defines a presidency, that defines an era. And yeah, the base is going to spin it somehow. They always do. They'll claim the recordings are fake or taken out of context or deep fakes or whatever new excuse comes out next. But inside that courtroom, there's no spinning this. The judge heard it. The prosecutors heard it. The journalists heard it. The defense attorneys heard it. And Trump himself heard it, sitting right there, watching his own case collapse in real time. Think about that for a second. He's sitting at the defense table. His lawyers are next to him. The judge is on the bench, and his own voice plays, describing crimes, offering bribes, directing evidence, destruction, and there's nothing he can do. No explanation, no excuse, no way out. The timing here is absolutely crucial too, and this is what people aren't focusing on enough. We're only weeks into his second term. This isn't some distant legal battle playing out in the background. This is happening right now, right as he's supposed to be governing, right as he's supposed to be focusing on his agenda, right as he's supposed to be making deals and pushing legislation. Instead, he's sitting in a courtroom, listening to himself order people to break the law. Think about what that does to a presidency. Think about how that impacts his ability to function. Congress is focused on this. The media won't stop talking about this. Foreign countries are watching this. They're thinking about whether they can trust the president of the United States when he's simultaneously fighting serious criminal charges. And the political landscape shifts overnight. Like, everything changes the second that tape plays. Suddenly, Republicans who were defending him have to make a choice. Do they keep defending him, knowing his own voice is on tape, or do they distance themselves? Do they quietly vote against his agenda? Do they refuse to support him publicly? The party fractures. The base becomes confused. Some people double down and deny what they heard. Other people just quietly walk away, and the president's ability to govern gets weaker every single day. So yeah, this is wild. This is absolutely wild. And we're going to break down exactly what happened, what it means, and why this moment changes everything about where this whole legal situation is headed. because this tape doesn't just change the trial, it changes the presidency. All right, so let's actually break down what went down in that courtroom, because there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and most people don't understand how absolutely damaging this tape really is. Like, people think they get it, but they don't. Not really. First, the basics. On January 7th, 2026, Judge Alinaga played this recorded call during open court proceedings. It wasn't some surprise evidence dropped from nowhere. Prosecutors had been building toward this. They had this call in their possession. It had been recorded by federal authorities during Trump's detention because he was on a monitored line. That's the key thing here. When you're in federal detention, your phone calls are recorded. The government listens. Every word, every pause, every emotion in your voice. And in this case, they were listening. And what they captured was Trump allegedly directing his son to destroy evidence. Not subtly, not with coded language, not with innuendo, directly. Get rid of it. The recording supposedly captured him saying, like, you don't need a lawyer to understand what that means. You don't need an expert witness. You just need ears. Get rid of it means destroy it. And then the bribe offer, $50 million. Like, come on, that's not ambiguous language. That's not something that could be misinterpreted or taken out of context. That's a direct offer of money in exchange for criminal conduct. The FBI didn't just hit record and call it a day, though. They transcribed the entire call, word for word, every single word, and then they authenticated forensic voice analysis. They've got the technical verification that it's actually Trump's voice on that tape. This isn't he said, she said anymore. This isn't someone claims he said something. This is verified, authenticated federal evidence. The FBI's forensic lab confirmed it. The chain of custody is solid. The authentication is done. And here's why prosecutors absolutely love this kind of evidence. Because now they don't need witnesses who might flip or lie or get intimidated by Trump's team. They don't need people to testify about what Trump said. They don't need secondhand accounts. They've got him saying it on tape in his own voice. Lawyers will tell you that's the kind of evidence that's almost impossible to defeat. You can't really argue with your own voice caught on a monitored line in federal custody. The jury just listens and it's over. But the courtroom reaction, that's where you see how serious this really is. Trump literally freezes. His team is shocked. And not just shocked like, oh wow, we didn't expect this. Shocked like our entire defense strategy just evaporated. Shocked like we're not coming back from this. Because here's the thing, he was already facing charges, already dealing with the Mar-a-Lago documents case, already fighting the obstruction allegations, and now he's caught on tape doing exactly what he was accused of doing. Not allegedly, on tape. His voice. The judge's response was immediate. New obstruction charges. Boom. Just like that. Because this isn't old conduct from years ago. This is current conduct. This is conduct happening after his arrest. This is him allegedly committing crimes while in federal custody. That tells you everything you need to know about how this is going to play out legally. This is the kind of evidence that judges hate defendants because it's so clear cut. Then you get the superseding indictment. This is the legal term for when prosecutors add new charges or expand existing charges based on new evidence. So everything they had before, all the document charges, all the obstruction stuff, now gets rolled into this bigger indictment that includes this new tape evidence. And suddenly, the legal landscape completely shifts. We're not talking about the same case anymore. We're talking about a much bigger case with much more serious implications. The trial date gets vacated. That means all that preparation, all those legal filings, all those strategies start over. Because now there's new evidence, new charges, a completely different case than what was being prepared for trial. The defense team has to restart. They have to listen to this tape. They have to figure out how they're going to respond. And spoiler alert, they can't really respond to it. What are they going to say? That's not actually his voice? The FBI already verified it is. And let's talk about the team collapsing thing, because that's actually really important to understanding what's happening here. Before this tape drops, Trump's legal team is already in chaos. His lawyers quit. His top advisors are gone. Like 3 days before this tape plays in court, on January 3rd, his major legal team members are bailing. This is the Epstein connection, the Blanche situation. Top legal talent is walking away from the case. His defense is already falling apart. And then the tape drops. Perfect timing or terrible timing, depending on how you look at it. So you've got this situation where his legal team is thin, his defense is weak, and suddenly there's audio evidence of him ordering criminal conduct. That's a nightmare scenario for a defendant, because now you're not just losing a case, you're losing it with minimal representation and maximum evidence against you. It's like the worst possible combination. The connections to the other evidence, that's what really shows how solid prosecutors' case is becoming. The Mar-a-Lago documents, that's already established. Those 833,000 pages of documents that were allegedly illegally taken, illegally held, kept in bathrooms and bedrooms. That's part of the foundation of the case. The bathroom photos with nuclear secrets. That's part of the evidence too. The Bedminster recordings. Those are connected. All of it connects to a pattern. And now this tape ties it all together because this tape shows intent. It shows consciousness of guilt. It shows Trump actively trying to make problems disappear. That's the kind of evidence that prosecutors use to establish a pattern of conduct. One document seizure, maybe it's a mistake. One recording, maybe it's isolated, but a pattern of conduct trying to destroy evidence, offering bribes, doing all this while in federal custody. That's a narrative that's really hard to defend against. That's the story prosecutors want to tell the jury. The crypto transactions, the witness bribes documented in the filings, all of that starts to look like part of a bigger picture when you've got Trump on tape offering money and directing destruction. And that's what prosecutors want. They want to show a pattern. They want to show systematic, ongoing criminal conduct, not just a one-time mistake, but actual organized crime style operations. That's how you get serious prison time. And here's the thing that people aren't really talking about. This is all happening while he's president. That changes the calculation for a lot of people. Like previously, this was a legal battle that was kind of separate from his presidency, but now it's happening in real time, in his second term, while he's supposed to be governing, while he's supposed to be making deals with Congress, while he's supposed to be negotiating with foreign countries. Instead, he's sitting in courtrooms. The GOP is abandoning him, like quietly, but they're doing it. They're not jumping out in front of camera saying we're distancing ourselves, but the votes are telling the story. The positions are telling the story. The silence is telling the story. Nobody wants to be associated with this, and that's going to matter politically, because even if the legal case takes years to fully play out, the political damage is happening right now. Today, this week, the midterms angle, that's huge too, because we're only weeks into his term, but the legal drama is already the dominant story. Impeachment is already being discussed. The party is fracturing, and his ability to get anything done legislatively is getting worse every single day. This case drags on and gets worse. You can't pass major legislation when your own party is worried about being associated with criminal charges. Okay, so let's break down what this actually means going forward, because there are a few key things you need to understand about why this tape is such a game changer. Like, this isn't just another legal development. This is the moment where everything changes. Point 1, the evidence is overwhelming. Now, first thing, prosecutors basically have what amounts to a confession on tape. And yeah, his lawyers will argue context, or that the tape is misleading, or that it's been edited, or whatever. But let's be real here. A jury hears a voice saying destroy evidence, and here's $50 million for anyone who makes this go away. That's pretty straightforward. That's not complicated legal stuff that requires expert interpretation. That's not something you need a PhD to understand. That's direct language about criminal conduct. The FBI authentication means there's no wiggle room on whether it's real. This isn't a leaked text message that could be fabricated. This isn't a document that could be forged. This is forensically verified audio taken from a monitor line in a secure facility. The chain of custody is solid. The authentication is done. Prosecutors can put this in front of a jury, and prosecutors can say that's the defendant's voice. The FBI verified it. What you're hearing is what you're hearing. And once that tape is in evidence, once that jury hears it, the case gets a lot easier for prosecutors, because everything else they've got, the documents, the photos, the other recordings, it all supports what they're hearing on this tape. It all shows a pattern of the same behavior, trying to keep classified materials, trying to hide evidence, trying to pay people off. The tape is the keystone. It's the piece that holds everything else together. So, from a legal standpoint, prosecutors just vaulted forward like 20 steps. This isn't a close case anymore. This is a case where the defendant is allegedly caught on tape doing the very thing he's accused of doing. This is the kind of case that prosecutors dream about. This is the kind of case that usually ends in conviction. Point 2, obstruction of justice gets way more serious. So here's the legal thing that's really important, and you need to understand this. Obstruction of justice charges can carry serious sentences on their own. We're talking years. But when you combine them with the underlying charges, like the classified documents stuff, suddenly you're looking at even longer sentences. Because now it's not just you took classified documents, it's you took classified documents and then you tried to cover it up and then you offer money to make it go away. Each of those things is a separate count, potentially. Each one can mean additional prison time. So when the judge announces new obstruction charges, we're not just talking about adding a charge to the indictment. We're talking about potentially adding years to whatever sentence comes out of this. This is the kind of thing that will make prosecutors happy and defense attorneys miserable. And the timing matters too. Are you kidding me? This isn't old obstruction from years ago that he might be able to argue was political or whatever. This is current obstruction. This is him doing this after his arrest, after he knows he's in legal trouble, after he's already been detained, after he's already been told his calls are being monitored, and he does it anyway. That makes it look even worse because it shows he didn't learn from getting caught. He just kept doing it. He kept trying to cover it up. He kept offering bribes. The superseding indictment is basically prosecutors saying, here's the original case we had, and here's everything new we found, and we're combining it all into one big indictment that shows a pattern of behavior. That's the kind of indictment that's really hard for a jury to acquit on, because it's not just isolated incidents, it's a pattern. It's systematic, it's organized. Point 3, the presidency becomes the background. And this is wild. So Trump's in his second term. He's supposed to be governing. He's supposed to be dealing with economic policy, foreign policy, all the things a president deals with. Instead, he's sitting in a courtroom. His legal team is imploding. His party is abandoning him. And the story of his presidency is now intrinsically linked to criminal charges. Like, think about how this plays internationally. Foreign leaders are looking at this and thinking, the president of the United States is sitting in courtrooms dealing with criminal allegations. That affects how America is perceived. That affects negotiations. That affects trade deals. That affects everything about how he can operate as president. You can't be an effective president when your own government is prosecuting you. And domestically, his agenda stalls because Congress is focused on this. The media is focused on this. His own party is fracturing. You can't push through major legislation when your party is dealing with the political fallout of the president facing serious criminal charges. It's just not possible. The political capital evaporates. The momentum disappears. The will to fight for your agenda goes away. This is why the midterms angle matters so much. Because if this drags on, and it will drag on, the party that backs him is going to get hammered in the midterms. Voters are going to look at this situation and think about what they want for the country. And a lot of them are going to decide they don't want to be associated with this. They don't want to be on the side of criminal charges. They don't want to be defending this in their districts. They just want to move on. Point 4, what comes next? So here's the practical reality. Trump's going to fight this. His lawyers are going to file motions. They're going to appeal. They're going to do everything they possibly can to delay this trial and cast doubt on the evidence. That's what defense attorneys do. That's their job. But spoiler alert, it's not going to work. The legal reality is getting harder for them every single day because they're not just dealing with documents and expert testimony now. They're dealing with his own voice caught on tape. And when a jury hears that, when they hear a voice saying the things he's alleged to have said, that's when the case gets really difficult to defend. That's when conviction becomes likely. That's when prison time becomes real. The conviction probability just went up dramatically. Like, we're talking about a situation where prosecutors have gone from we think he did this to here's him doing this on tape. That's a massive shift in how you'd evaluate the likelihood of conviction. We're talking about a conviction rate that just skyrocketed. Nobody's betting against prosecutors now in prison time. That's the real outcome here. Because if he's convicted on these charges, if a jury hears that tape and hears the underlying evidence, we're not talking about probation. We're not talking about a fine. We're not talking about house arrest. We're talking about serious prison time, years, multiple years potentially. That's what prosecutors are building toward. That's the goal. The pardon question gets really interesting too, and this is something people don't think about enough. Like, can he pardon himself? That's a legal question that's never been fully answered. But politically, it would be catastrophic. Because even his supporters would balk at watching him give himself a pardon for conduct where he's caught on tape ordering evidence destruction. That's just too blatant. That would break even his party's will to defend him. You can't come back from that. You can't explain that away. So the real likelihood is that this case goes to trial. A jury hears the evidence. And if they believe the evidence, which they should, because it includes his own voice on tape, they convict. And then the judge sentences him. And that's when the real consequences come. That's when everything changes. That's when American politics gets rewritten. This is the moment where the presidency becomes a background fact in a criminal case instead of the other way around. This is where the legal system catches up to the reality of what prosecutors say he did. This is the tape that changes everything. Come on. This is going to reshape American politics for a generation. Buckle up, because this case is nowhere near over, but it just got a whole lot more serious, and we're just getting started.
In the last hour with the minority, Mr. Smith, we asked you about folks that were interviewed during the course of your January 6th investigation. I think we talked about Mr. Giuliani, we mentioned Mr. Meadows, we mentioned Vice President Pence. An individual that I failed to ask about was whether you interviewed Director Kash Patel as part of your investigation with the Special Counsel's Office.
I can't get into that because of the Judge Cannon's injunction.
Okay. Did Director Patel testify before the grand jury as part of your investigation?
Same answer.
Can you mind saying that just for the record, to make it the record clear?
I cannot answer that question due to Judge Cannon's injunction.
And did Director Patel assert his right against self-incrimination as part of your investigation?
Can't answer that question.
In general, just using your years of experience as a prosecutor, are you aware of any prohibitions that would prevent Mr. Patel or Director Patel from disclosing his own testimony if he did testify with the Special Counsel's Office?
Just as a general matter, not specific to anything with this case, my understanding is the witnesses can disclose their own testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Raskin?
Mr. Smith, do you believe that the Supreme Court's decision on executive immunity constitutes an exoneration of President Trump's conduct in the months and weeks leading up to January 6th and on January 6th?
No.
Would you just explain that for us, why you don't see that as an exoneration for what he did?
Sure. I understand the Supreme Court decision. And if I just go back for a second, this was an issue we litigated in the district court. The district court agreed with us. We litigated it in the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals agreed with us. We litigated it in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court majority did not agree with us. They took a view of executive power that was more expansive than what we argued. I disagreed with it for the reasons we set forth in our brief and the reasons stated by the dissent in the case, Judge Sotomayor. But it is the law of the land. What my office sought to do in responding to that was to follow the law and see, do we still have a case? And I think the evidence that we had after that decision remained powerful. I talked earlier today about state officials who put allegiance to the country before party. Those officials from Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all those. I'm sorry.
Georgia.
All those witnesses, right? All those witnesses would still be available to us. The heart of our case would still be available to us. And I think it's important to know that, well, you know, our view was that he abused his authority in the Justice Department to effect as one way to effectuate this scheme. This was about him as a candidate trying to say he won an election. He didn't win. And so having to frame this in that manner, obviously it limited some of the evidence. That's why we had to supersede the indictment. But I don't think it was an exoneration because I still believed that there was substantial evidence that would allow us to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt.
For homicide detectives, their chance of solving a murder is cut in half if they don't get a lead within the first 48 hours. For homicide detectives, their chance of solving a murder is cut in
Someone can be guilty of a
48 hours.
crime in a factual sense, but still be immunized from prosecution. Right.
Well, I mean, it's getting sort of like theoretical or metaphysical. I mean, if the court says that that's not a crime, then it's not a crime. But in our case, our view was that that ruling excised a certain portion of our proof, but all the charges. We felt were still valid. We felt we still had. Let them say what they want. A lot of evidence to support those charges.
Right. What, did you have any questions? But I wonder if you would answer a question based on your experience as a war crimes prosecutor. And I don't know whether over the course of your long and distinguished career you've come to articulate a difference between ordinary crimes, run-of-the-mill crimes, and crimes that have some kind of world historical significance. Perhaps so, perhaps not. But I wonder if you do put war crimes, for example, in a different category from, say, for example, robberies that you've prosecuted, how you would think about classifying the crimes that you had investigated and were prepared to prosecute related to January 6th and the attempt to overthrow a presidential election.
So I think as a prosecutor, how you go about investigating those cases and make a decision to prosecute those cases, in my view, the principles in the robbery case or in my early career domestic violence case, those are the exact same principles you'd use in the most terrible war crimes case or in the work I had as special counsel. You follow the facts and the law. Nobody's above the law. You treat everybody the same. Applying those principles in more complex cases requires experience, and it's one of the reasons I felt I was qualified to do this job. But the principles, I think, remain the same. In my view, my personal view, is that the difference is the harm. Domestic violence case is awful. Should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, but generally there's one victim. War crimes cases that I've worked on can affect an entire country and entire culture. I think, and this isn't just me, the Court of Appeals in this case, when we litigated it, said that if the things we alleged were proven, it would amount to attack on the structure of our democracy. Those aren't my words, those are the court's words. And so whether a case is of that import or of less, I think you go about it the same way, but obviously the consequences for our country are quite different.
Have you made any statements, or are you willing to make any statements on the firing and removal of Department of Justice prosecutors who worked on January 6th, on people at the FBI who were involved in the FBI investigation, or on the president's mass summary pardon of 1,600 January 6th insurrectionists and other people involved?
Yeah. I think what has happened to career prosecutors and career FBI agents is awful. It's contrary to the rule of law. It's contrary to who I think we are as a country. One of the agents on our case, he served his country overseas multiple times, war zones. Family of dedicated public servants, wife's family, dedicated public servants. He got fired for doing his job 2 weeks after his wife died. I went to the funeral. I saw his family. I saw a church full of public servants. No reason a person like that should have to go through that. And I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry about that. But I just think that's wrong.
Well, thank you for your service to America and to the Department of Justice and the people.
Following up on that a little bit, if individuals are fired or lose their jobs simply for taking part of an investigation into someone who is an authority figure or in a high position of government, how does that impact our democracy?
Well, if you take the position that you cannot work in the federal government unless you have a political allegiance to the president, I think there are many harms to that. Our country tried that in the past. It's called the patronage system. And what we learned in our history is, and this would be if it's a Democrat or Republican, would not matter. But what we learned is that those systems are rife with not only corruption, but with incompetence. Because the people who have these jobs, they didn't get them because of merit, because they've dedicated their career to learning national security law, to learning how to properly investigate a case. They got their jobs because they're loyal to a particular person. That's not fair, but it also makes for people who really don't know how to do the work. And so I think that's a danger to the country it saddens and angers me in the short term, but I think there are great costs to us long term if that's the direction we go in.
I'm going to pull on that last bit of your answer, if you don't mind, the damage it could cause long term. Do you mind elaborating that a little bit, especially as it relates to, recruiting the talent to the government, to public service who actually has the knowledge and the specialty and the competence to do the job? What types of dangers do you see if this continues?
Well, I've just seen career prosecutors who have served, again, Republican and Democratic administrations over and over again. These are the knowledge sources in the department in different areas. These are the people who mentor young lawyers. And when you take them away, those young lawyers don't have anybody to learn from. My experience in the department, again, doesn't matter the administration. These are not partisans. They're people who have decided they don't want to make a lot of money. They're not looking for fame. They just want to do good work. And I think when you lose that culture, you lose a lot.
Speaking of, sections within the government or within DOJ specifically that have particular skill sets and knowledge, I want to talk a little bit about the Public Integrity Section, or PIN. That's come up earlier in the majority's hours. But what's the mission of PIN?
The Public Integrity Section was formed after Watergate, and the section litigates complex corruption cases around the country. It does some of those cases on its own. It does, or at least during my time there, it also does cases in conjunction with, in partnership with local U.S. Attorney's Office, bringing expertise about some of the issues we've talked about today to them. And it also is a sort of clearinghouse for expertise on these issues, like the speech or debate clause or things of that nature.
Does the Public Integrity Section play a role in checking potential abuses by DOJ as it relates to investigating members of Congress?
Well, in particular, I think it's valuable for prosecutors to make sure they get things right. They're the sort of keeper of these issues, and they're the people you go to make sure you're doing things the right way.
I guess, are you aware of some of the firings or dismantling that's been going on with the Public Integrity Section since the beginning of 2025?
Yes.
Do you
make an exhibit on, we have to number 6?
Yes.
And this is some back and forth. Exhibit 6 is going to be an email between your office and Public Integrity regarding the Senate, the total records for the senators.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The relevant, these documents are helpfully not based.
Yeah. If you want to show me yours, I can look for it here.
So the department has, if you're going to, has requirements for all prosecutors that, if you're going to bring a tax prosecution, you have to consult with the tax division, right?
Correct.
If you're going to bring a national security related case for classified documents, handling of classified documents, you need the National Security Division to okay that, right?
Correct.
And as it relates to, sensitive political matters, the Attorney General has to okay, and there's been a series of memos both from Attorney General Barr and Garland and so forth, correct?
Sensitive political matters, I'm not sure if that's the terminology. There's an election year sensitivities memo, and there's also regulations, specific regulations for specific situations, yes.
Right, and the FBI calls it a sensitive investigative matter, and, they need to get they can't do anything without getting the director of the FBI to okay, getting search warrants against members of Congress and so forth. Correct?
I'm not as familiar with the FBI regulations as the DOJ regulations.
But is public integrity, before you seek member toll records, is the hoop you have to jump through public integrity?
So it was for my office because I directed my staff to consult them anytime we were going to do that. I understand that that was more of a practice and tradition. It's since become a specific requirement after these toll records were issued, but it was my policy to do that, and it was, again, consistent with my policy of wanting to sort of leverage the expertise in the department. So we did that.
Is this back and forth, and your staff had a memo that it, I think, basically put in email, and then public integrity responds with this message. Is that essentially the extent of the back and forth with public integrity?
I don't know that this is the extent of it. There's a line here that says, "As you are aware." That makes me think that there was also a telephone conversation, but I don't. Just to be clear, I don't have a specific recollection of that. I told my staff that in this situation, if we're going to seek these toll records, you need to consult with public integrity. As you can see from the email chain, I wasn't on that email chain.
Were there any other boxes you had to check? Did you have to tell the Attorney General or the DAG to get these toll records, or was it just you and public integrity?
My direction was to tell for our staff to go to public integrity. It may well have been that this is the sort of thing either I would have briefed the Attorney General on, or J.P. Cooney, who was our contact with the leadership of the department, may have told them about. But the thing that I was most concerned about was making sure public integrity, who was the sort of the experts on this issue, that they were consulted.
I mean, this isn't, if you look at the email, it's not that fulsome, right? It's not a complete analysis of the constitutionality or even the propriety of the call record subpoenas under the speech or debate clause. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yes, certainly there could be more analysis, but again, I don't know if there was an additional conversation that it seemed. I'm drawing an inference. I don't recall this, but this seems to me to indicate there may have been an additional conversation.
So the email, from our perspective, it seems to be a cursory litigation risk assessment. It's not, it doesn't raise the issues that we would raise if we were litigating the speech or debate matter. Because, our position is that the toll record subpoenas do violate speech or debate. If you get a list of all the people calling members of the Judiciary Committee before a floor vote, that is pretty core protected material. This back and forth with public integrity doesn't address very much. Is that fair?
Well, again, I don't know if there were additional conversation or conversations. I also don't know, frankly, if this is the only email on this issue. So I don't think I would call it cursory. I think an important context here is that the people involved in this, including the people on this email chain, as well as one of my senior counselors, Ray Hulser, who was really the department's expert on these issues, that these are people with expertise in this area discussing it with one another.
But if you believe what the Washington Post reporters wrote in their book, they say, according to their sources, that you were legendary for being dialed into, every last detail of these cases. That you were, they stopped short of calling you a micromanager, but they say that you looked at, witness outlines, 2 days before witness interviews. Is that fair?
I did that with outlines of interviews, yes.
And you had, at points, you had daily meetings with the teams, and you wanted to know, every last detail of your case. Is that fair?
I try to be a responsible supervisor, yes.
But when it comes to taking the members of Congress, phone records, you weren't as plugged into that. Is that fair?
No, I don't think that's fair. I spoke with my staff about this. I ultimately approved it.
Right.
I had faith in the expertise of my staff. They discussed it with me. I felt there was a basis for it. I felt it was relevant and material to the investigation. And I also felt comfortable because I knew that my view about that would be tested by an analysis of public integrity.
Well, look at the last sentence. Low likelihood that any of the members listed below would be charged, and the litigation risk would be minimal. Not to mention, they're not going to know. So the assessment is, as Steve described it, pretty cursory. We're not going to charge anyone. We're not going to get sued. They're not going to know. Who cares about speech or debate? That's what the assessment looks like to me. Your response?
Chairman, I would disagree with that characterization of it.
Well, that's what the sentence says. We're not going to charge these people. I doubt if they take us to court. It'd be hard for them to take us to court because they're not going to know for years that we did this. Move ahead. And you said fine to that.
I approve these subpoenas, yes.
Okay.
And, our view is this is inconsistent with the D.C. Circuit case law, which establishes that the speech or debate protections includes a non-disclosure privilege, period. It's not just a privilege against using that material against the members. It's also a privilege against taking that information and using it against a third party. If you're going to prosecute Jeff Clark with Scott Perry's phone records, we believe that the D.C. Circuit holds you can't do that. And this back and forth with public integrity doesn't factor that in. That's